and welcome to another episode of Coffee with a Kick. We are here for our Matchday 22 preview for this weekend before Champions League comes back next midweek, so that's exciting. For the next 2 weeks, as a matter of fact. But we have a little bit to do before we get there. Anything that you need to talk about before we get started with our picks here, Keegan?
I'm just going to say there ain't no breaks in this soccer season. When you said Champions League was next week, I was like, surely not. There's got to be a gap. Sure enough, it is. So there's no breaks. These players are going to not even have legs by the end of the season. But it makes for wonderful entertainment on our part. And that's what it's for, right? That's what they're doing it for. But, man, these teams, I'm sure that the non-Champions League teams, non-Europe teams are going to love the reprieve. Probably going to help them. But
yeah.
At this point, it's kind of like you get into Europe, you're kind of punished for getting in Europe as far as domestic goes.
Yeah. So circle your calendar for not this weekend, but next weekend. A lot of tired legs are going to be on the field for the big boys. Not this weekend, but next weekend. This weekend, they're still going to be tired because they've played a lot of soccer since the beginning of the year. But, it's going to be a lot come Matchday 23. But we're going to stick to the matter at hand at the moment, which starts off with Newcastle and Bournemouth. Newcastle hosting Bournemouth here coming up. And I'll go ahead and start it off here. Newcastle, I think, will be doing all right. Bournemouth is doing pretty well at the moment. Let me just double check that I'm not speaking incorrectly. But yeah, no, Bournemouth, they are undefeated at the time of recording since back in November. Really?
Yeah,
good for Bournemouth.
They drew Chelsea. We know that. They drew Chelsea 2-2, match day 21. So they're, I think, what is it, like a 10-game match unbeaten streak? It's a pretty long.
9. They're back to match week 13 is when the streak started. So, yeah, I mean, they're doing well, but so is Newcastle. Newcastle was able to, hold on, I'm going to refresh my page here because I think I'm a little bit out of date. They are on their bit of a streak. We'll see if that continues. Full transparency, we're recording this before the end of match day 21. So I anticipate the Newcastle will beat my Wolves because that's what I picked in the previous episode. But they are currently riding that 5-day match streak, so better streak than Bournemouth, and I think that they will take it 2-1. They're at home. I think it gives them a good advantage.
I'm thinking similarly. I'm going to go 3-1. Newcastle's been scoring good amount of goals lately. So, but I mean, Bournemouth, this is one of those where it could be 3-1 either way, just with how these teams have been playing. So, but at Newcastle, at St. James's Park, I got to give it to Newcastle.
Yes, and then we move over to Brentford versus Liverpool. Liverpool coming off a predicted draw against Nottinghamforest in the midweek.
Predicted by you.
Predicted by this guy right here. Perfect pick. How do you think they'll fare against them bees, who pulled off a pretty substantive draw of their own?
Yeah, we'll talk about that in the recap episode.
Yeah. We'll push that a little bit.
Yeah, we'll push that pain off for a little bit. Just take some Advil and hopefully it doesn't come back. I think, again, Brentford, another team playing extremely well. They slipped up there with a couple of losses in match days, I think 17 through 19. But, boy, I mean, before that they were rocking. I think they're still a good team. Their issue is the Man City draw was only their 4th draw of the season, so it's very volatile. It's either a win or it's a loss. There's really no in between. I think at home they have a chance to get the W.
Really?
Liverpool is falling a little bit. It seems like some of the players that were in form aren't as in form. Some of the players are kind of getting antsy about not being able to be on the field. And it took a Diogo Jota sub to be able to get the goal, and it subbed it pretty early. Slot got some backlash for taking off some key players, but I don't know. Liverpool seem vulnerable. I think Brentford's going to step on the gas, try and get them with a 2-1 victory.
Really? I do disagree. I think that Liverpool will I mean, they dropping points 2 weeks in a row as the leader is certainly something you would want to avoid. So I think that they will be focused on this match, maybe even more so than the Champions League, because they are pretty well set up for Champions League at the moment. If memory serves, I haven't looked at table recap. I believe they are undefeated in Champions League. Is that right? I don't want to check it right now. So they may be more focused on the Premier League right now than the Champions League. So I think that they go in and they take it 2-0 against Brentford. I think they go in, take care of business, and then can shift focus over to Europe and whoever they have in, whether it's this week or next week. There's a couple of things I have to check about that because they may not be till next week. Then we go from Brentford to Leicester, who hosts Fulham. Fulham, the defeated Fulham from the midweek. Leicester yet to play from our point of view. Doesn't change my pick. Whatever happens in the midweek, I think Fulham's a far better team than Leicester, and the loss in the midweek will enforce that they really do need something here. And a 3-1 victory is what I have away at King Power Stadium.
Yeah, I think this one's 2-1 Fulham. I'm right there with you, Fulham. The loss, they need a victory. They know how important these away games are. Leicester, I think, is going to make it a fight. So I don't think it'll quite be a 2-goal gap, but I do think Fulham will pull it out in the end.
Yeah. And then we move to the top of the alphabet, top of the table here. Arsenal and Aston Villa. Both these teams could use some points here. And Aston Villa has been rather volatile since like mid-December? Yeah. Up and down quite a bit. Arsenal... also on their own unbeaten streak since back in, November. Has not played yet in this midweek from our perspective against Tottenham. So don't know how that one's resulting, but I think that they'll be able to at least get a draw there. Aston Villa, though, I think they're in more need of a result just with their volatility, but I don't think either side gets it. I think it's a 1-1 draw for Arsenal and Aston Villa. Arsenal's picked up some injuries here in the recently that have shown, and Aston Villa, I don't trust them to keep a clean sheet. I wish I could, but I can't. And they like to play the big teams in low-scoring affairs.
Yeah, I'm right there with you with that last comment. I think it's going to be a double bagel. I think 0-0 will be the result. Arsenal hit with a lot of offensive injuries, specifically.
Yeah.
And Aston Villa, this season, it appears that in these types of bigger games, they want to hunker down and almost park the bus and just really hit like a West Ham style. Keep one attacker up, they'll do the counter attack, but everyone else stay back. So I think it goes 0-0, and I think Arsenal they'll be pretty down on themselves for being at home and dropping points.
Yeah, it won't be great, but Arsenal, if our other results hold, then Liverpool isn't running away with anything still. So they would still have a shot at forward advancement. But wow, at the moment, well, I'll wait till the recap episode to speak on that. And then we move from there to West Ham hosting Crystal Palace, which, how do you have that one shaking out?
We saw West Ham get a pretty good victory versus Fulham in Matchday 21. Apparently, the new manager, Graham Potter, bringing in some new attacking prowess, because I don't think they had scored 3 goals in any game this season, maybe 1. So I think Crystal Palace will knock them back just due to the defensive mindset of who they are. I think it's a 1-1 draw between West Ham and Crystal Palace.
1-1.
Are you going to change yours now?
Actually, yeah, I do have to change mine. I'll go 0-0 instead. I'll do the double bagel on this one.
There's going to be one double bagel. That's what we're saying.
That's what we're saying. There's going to be one double bagel because I did have it as 1-1 from West Ham to Crystal Palace. I believe this would be called a local derby, according to one of the comments from our last video, the preview episode, because it's not a named derby for London. Yeah, 0-0. None of these teams are really doing it for me right now. So I think that they won't be too unhappy about that. With how many goals that West Ham has conceded so far this season, 41, only, which is far more than their position on the table would indicate. And Crystal Palace, I mean, they're down in 15th, but only have a -7 goal difference, which is interesting stat. I mean, Manchester United is actually closer to is fewer, but only one position higher. Regardless, I think it's a 0-0 draw. And we'll move on from that to Everton and Tottenham, which I think will be a blowout. I think that Everton is reeling, and that Tottenham, we don't know what we're going to get from them week in and week out. They're on a big slump, so they could really use, without knowing what happens with the match this midweek. But they're on a big slump right now, so 4-0 I'm giving Tottenham, which is bold, I think.
You and I are thinking about this one differently. I think of it as David Moyes will have a full week of practice, have a game under his belt, and it'll be the first match that they'll play, second home match. So he's going to want to make an impression. I think it's a 1-1 draw. I think, as we've talked about, Tottenham have been very volatile, and I think David Moyes is going to reinvigorate the defense and get a draw. I think he will.
That'd be a big result for him in his first. Would that be his first home match? Hold on, let me double check.
Well, they're playing Aston Villa at home.
Oh, okay, no. They're
Matchday 21.
Yeah. Not so you'll have second home match. Whatever, it doesn't matter. First full week though is the big thing. Yes, and then Manchester United and Brighton Hove Albion. How do you have that one going?
This one was it was a tough one because Brighton, again, we're looking at a team that isn't too hot, but they're at least better than Man U. Brighton have now drawn 4 straight matches outside of whatever happens in Matchday 21. I think they draw it again. I think it goes 2-2. I think this will be another slump for Man U. They're at home. They want to get the win, but I think Brighton comes in and gets a draw.
Now, I think that Brighton actually is able to take full honors here at Old Trafford. 3-1 victory is what I have for Brighton. A classic 3-1 victory going back, looking at their... It'll be a very a 2023-esque Brighton Hove Albion at the beginning of the season where every match they had was 1-3, it seemed like, for the first couple months. So they don't have Facundo Campazzo at this point, but he's on loan with Leicester, right?
One of those teams.
I think that's right. But I think that they'll still be able to net 3 and take down them Red Devils. Then we move from Manchester to Nottingham with Nottinghamforest versus Southampton. I think that this is actually going to be very nervy for Nottingham. They're coming off of a big result in the midweek. A draw against Liverpool. They're at the top of the table. As of this moment when we're recording, they're technically second on the table. So that's crazy. I think that they do pull off the win here against Southampton. But it's a good loss for Southampton. It's only 1-0. A 1-0 away loss, I think that they will take to a certain extent.
Yeah, I am again thinking opposite.
No.
I think Nottingham they're at home. It's where you want to be after a nervy draw. And frankly, a big result. Like Nottingham, where they're at on the table, might be disappointed with the draw, how they've been playing. Mm-hmm. But based on who they are, Nottingham Forest, and who they were last year, and who we predicted them to be this year, they're doing pretty well. A draw against Liverpool is amazing. I think they come out, use that energy. They win 4-0 against Southampton. Again, I will say this until the season is over. Liverpool is doing very well. But Nottingham has a chance to once again be the Leicester City of this year. Because Liverpool's slipping, Arsenal's slipping, but Nottingham, they're winning the games that they need to win. They're getting points out of the games they need to get points out of. So watch out, because Nottingham, if they take the lead, I'm not sure they're going to look back.
I thought for a second there you were saying that you're thinking opposite, as in Southampton was going to win. I'm like, you can't be that. You can't.
Southampton's going to blow them out 4.
No, we're keeping this within. That's not even the points, like units move. This is really just. I mean, I don't know how they've got Nottingham Forest versus Southampton, and yet Nottingham Forest, Southampton is still only 7 units. Like I've seen Southampton and Manchester, I think it was like 23 units earlier this season. So it's really disrespectful, the odds makers for Nottingham Forest. They don't believe, the odds makers don't believe in Nottingham. But we do to a certain extent.
But we do.
And then we go to Ipswich Town and Manchester City. Do you think Manchester City is going to give up a 2-goal lead again in this one?
It's at Ipswich. Away from home, we've not been awesome. I think that I don't know if any of the new signings that we're reportedly bringing in this week are going to play in this match, but I do think that Pep is slowly starting to remove the, just the dead weight on the team. We're throwing the dead weight off the boat so we can keep going forward at a good rate.
Excising the corrupted flesh.
Yes, exactly the words I was hoping to find.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we'll actually see a few youngsters in this one replace some of the older guys who Pep has been holding on to kind of justify what we paid for him for, but the results aren't on the pitch. We saw it in this last. Gundogan, I think he needs to be relieved of his contract because, boy, he is poor in form. I think it goes 4-0 Man City. I think Ipswich is one of those teams that when you're on a skid, you want to see them.
Yeah.
Because you kind of, just the style that Man City plays, Ipswich has not played well against all season. When they play a team that dominates possession and has creative players, Ipswich typically just, let's just damage control this game. So I think that's how it goes and ends 4-0.
4-0. I have it close to the same, but I don't trust you guys to keep a clean sheet, even against Ipswich Town. 4-1 is how I have it, which, is still a good result. We'll see if they can actually pull off this 4-1 prediction for us, or 4-0 prediction for you, because they haven't done it recently. And then we wrap up the match day with a good old Chelsea versus Wolves. I think this goes 3-0 to Chelsea. That's what I'll say. I think they dispatch my Wolves with relative aplomb.
Well, I agree with Chelsea getting 3, but I think Wolves have enough stuff to get 1 goal. I think it's 3-1.
It's so generous of you.
But hey, Chelsea not been in great form.
No.
So this could be 3-0 or 1-1. We just don't. It's kind of like Newcastle Bournemouth. I feel like either of these games could go the way we think or the complete opposite just based on form. But I don't. 2 straight away matches for Wolves. I just don't see them collecting points at this junction.
Yeah, I don't think so either. We just need enough points to stay up. That's all we need. And with the other results that we have for that week, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. And that brings us to the end of our predictions for Matchday 22. Make sure to tune into our recap of 21 coming out later this week. And anything you need to cover before we get out of here?
No, hopefully by the recap episode, we'll have some notable transfers to mention. Right now, it's just still rumors. Oh, we agreed personal terms with this guy or that guy, or we need a striker. I don't know. There's some big names out there, so hopefully by then we'll be able to actually talk about them.
All right. Well, until we are able to talk about that, maybe not, at least for the recap episode, why don't you go ahead and grab your coffee, watch some soccer, and we'll see you on the other side.